Welcome back to the McCoy Leadership Podcast, elevating your impact through valuable insights and conversations about leadership. Welcome back to another episode of the McCoy Leadership Podcast, and today we have Gee Ranasinha. Hey, I got it right.
You got it right.
With us here today. We're excited, and Gee has been doing marketing since the days of dial-up internet and AOL and CDs, and there's probably a few people listening that don't know what any of those things are. But we're excited to have Gee with us today. Gee, why don't you tell us a little bit about how you got to where you are today and a little bit of your backstory?
Well, thank you very much for inviting me, Amos. I do appreciate it. Delighted to be invited. And yes, for those of us listening, if you don't remember what dial-up internet is and don't know what an AOL CD is, then I'd ask your parents. They'll probably tell you. They'll probably know. So my name is Gee Ranasinha. I run a marketing agency out of Europe by the name of Kexino. Even though we're based in Europe, probably 90% of our clients are in the US. Strange that. I mean, I don't know, Amos, I don't know if you've heard of this thing. There's this thing called the interwebs, and apparently it works really well. So we've been in business 17 years. We sort of differentiate ourselves by combining marketing strategy, branding, and behavioral science to increase awareness, reputation, and trust, and most of all, sales for our clients, which are typically small to medium-sized businesses. And, sales is the operative word, of course, because sales is what it's all about, right? It's if it's not selling, then it's not marketing. It's fluff. It's noise. We're just adding to the noise that's already there. So it needs to be a tangible business result into whatever we do. And we've been going about 17 years, and over that time, we've worked with probably 400 startups and small businesses over that time. And that's us.
So I'm just curious, when you got started into marketing and you were using dial-up internet, did you ever dream of a day that you would be sitting in Europe and able to connect with video and do all of your meetings and be doing podcasts and all of the amazing things that we do today? Did you ever dream that was coming?
Well, 17 years ago when we started the agency, Adam, I suppose you can call him our CIO, he had the brainwave of actually structuring the agency totally virtually online. Now, in 2008, beginning of 2008, that was a pretty bold move. I mean, there weren't many agencies, there weren't many businesses set up that way. But we've always been set up in a remote working environment from day one. We don't have an office. I mean, we have a sales office in Chicago, we have a sales office in Montreal, but they're more than anything else, they're addresses. It's not like we don't have an office where everybody comes and there's sort of exposed brick and wooden floorboards and floor to ceiling windows and, ping pong tables in the corner and all that sort of nonsense. No, it's from day one, we've been set up that way. And it's only because of, leveraging the power of the internet, because we have to drink our own Kool-Aid, right? Because that's what we're trying to offer for our customers, for our clients, is the way to sort of leverage this and offer tools, services, and promote their value articulation through channels that make sense for their target audience, which may or may not include online channels.
Wonderful. So for all of our listeners that might be thinking at this point, well, this is a leadership podcast. What are we doing talking about marketing? It has occurred to me that we spend a tremendous amount of time within our podcast and within my business. I spend a lot of time helping people learn how to connect with people, but most of the time, those are the people they're working with. It could be their board, it could be their employees, it could be their colleagues. And you have an interesting look at marketing and using psychology to help with that marketing. And I thought it would probably be very valuable for our listeners to start to think about that connection and communication with the outside world. And you also have some leadership lessons from starting and growing a business as well, which I hope we have some time to get into. But I think probably the best place to start, first of all, from a marketing standpoint, is can you kind of help us understand what is the difference in your mind between marketing and a promotion?
Promotion is a part of marketing. Absolutely. But it is only a part. Okay. All promotion is marketing, but not all marketing is promotions. Okay. If we move upstream and we think about the strategic areas of marketing, and we think about things like identifying your ideal customer profile, looking at market volatility, addressing what your go-to-market strategy looks like, doing that customer research, segmentation, targeting, positioning, all of that good stuff that, you know, marketers who know what they're doing put in place. Once we've got all of that in place and we start looking at a tactical plan, part of that tactical plan will be promotion. Okay? Part of it. No, it's not all of it, because generally speaking, if we want to sort of break it down into its constituent components, you've probably heard of the 4 Ps of marketing, right?
Yes.
Today, you know, people say there's 5 Ps, 6 Ps, 10 Ps. I don't really care how many Ps there are. You know, there's so many Ps. It's like somebody's got cystitis, to be honest. There's so many Ps going on here, right? Doesn't really matter how many Ps. The point is, the promotions aspect is just one part of the overall tactical execution. Unfortunately, people who have marketing in their job title, right, people who call themselves marketers, notice I didn't say marketers, I said people who call themselves marketers, think that what we all regard as being promotion equates to marketing. So they think PR and ads and videos and social media and websites and podcasts and all of this sort of stuff is marketing. Now, it falls under the umbrella of marketing, absolutely. But it's a tiny percentage of what marketing is all about. And I think because there's not enough experience and education at a marketing level, especially in the upper echelons of management, we have the situation which we have today, where even as we're spending more and more time, resources, and money on marketing, as a business, we're getting lower and lower results. Because we're not doing our homework, we're not doing things the way they should be done, okay? And it's easy to blame the next shiny object, easy to blame technology or shrinking attention spans or sunspots, 5G, radiation, whatever you want to blame, right? I don't really care, right? But I keep on reading, like pretty much on a daily basis, like this total crap written about people who haven't got a clue what they're talking about when they say marketing has totally changed. And I totally reject that premise. Firstly, because these people don't know what marketing is and are confusing it with promotion, okay? But secondly, because marketing hasn't changed much, because the psychological and emotional drivers that form the basic mental structures of how and why human beings buy things hasn't changed, right? What has changed, of course, are the tactics. Of course, tactics always changed. I totally appreciate the tactics that we're using today are completely different from the tactics we were using 20 years ago, 10 years ago, 3 years ago, last week, right? But ultimately, the challenge of understanding buyers, the strategic questions of target, position, objective, remain pretty much the same as they always done. You know, the execution has altered and will continue to evolve, of course. But the fundamental challenges and lessons we can learn from the recent and not so recent past remains the same. And one of the reasons why I think marketing is failing to realize the expectations of it is because of the way it's being executed. Also because of the way that marketing, people who call themselves marketing, choose to articulate what they're doing to other areas of the business. Okay, I have a pretty firm belief that the C-suite have an inherent distrust in marketing. CEOs, especially CFOs, have an inherent distrust in marketing, and that is marketing's fault, nobody else's. But that's jumping a little bit further forward. Let's get back to why I think marketing isn't working. I think it's not working because most of the marketing that we see today, the messaging, the customer-facing stuff that we see today, comes from a messaging position of pragmatism, of logic, of rationality. Okay? But the targets of marketing are living, breathing human beings. And living, breathing human beings are anything but rational in the way that we choose to buy things. Okay? So I can wax lyrical about marketing concepts such as mental availability and distinctive brand assets and, left brain, right brain, even though it's more, latterly it's been more accurately named System 1 and System 2 thinking, the cognitive modes of rationality. But what we can say is that with marketing today, we have a single direction communications ideology that chooses to ignore the emotional side of the brain. Yet it's the emotional side of the brain that understands things like empathy, humor, irony, and all the other emotional traits that need to be considered for longer term brand building. And the point is that effective marketing requires them both. It requires the pragmatism and logic and bullet points, the narrative, yes, but it requires an emotional input, because that's the way the human mind creates those mental structures, so that when a buyer is in a buying mode and is in a position to make a purchase, we are one of those products or services that are being considered. Okay, so the reason why I bought a can of Coca-Cola last week is not because of the ad I saw yesterday on the bus shelter. It's because of the ad that I've seen for every day of my life for the last 45 years.
So how long, I think that's a valid point. And I know way back in the late 90s, there were times, number one, I'll back up. Knowing who your customers are is not a new thing. I mean, that has been a marketing practice for years, that if you want to sell something, you need to have an idea who you're going to sell it to. And I know with AI and all of those things, which we'll get to some questions around AI later, a lot of people have started to talk about your avatar and knowing who you're selling to and creating the perfect ideal customer and then marketing to that person, which obviously can be helpful if you're marketing to the right people. You don't want to market, a men's product to all women unless it's Father's Day or their birthday or for some other reason.
Well, that's the point, Amos, because there is this laser focused targeting is a curveball. It's a distraction. Okay, if you look at most average nuclear households, 70 to 80% of the household expenditure is governed by the matriarch in that home, right? Men's deodorant is bought by women more than it's bought by men. So targeting men is absolute waste of money, right? So it's this customer identification, this avatar stuff has been going, as you correctly identified, it's been going on since Mad Men. It's been going on since before that, but it's not taking into account the reality of how money is spent and who is making that buying decision. Okay. And, a clear example of this is the automotive industry. Okay. we see countless ads, media, posters, TV, cinema. It's like ad against, I don't know, probably 1 in 4, 1 in 5 ads is a car ad. Okay. And you see the car ad, 10 will get you 5, that the people you see in those car ads are under the age of 35. Right. But if you look at the data, if you look at who are buying cars, the percentage of new car buyers under the age of 35 is about 15%. Right? If you look at 35 to 75, it occupies like 71, 73% of car buyers. When's the last time you saw somebody in their 60s in a car ad? You don't see them.
Yep.
But those are the people who are buying the cars. So why are we doing that? Why are we pissing money down the drain and trying to attract an audience who will never buy our car?
See, I thought if I bought the car, I would be that young again. See, that's where,
Wouldn't that be great?
Yeah.
Yes. What happens even for the under 35s, certainly the under 25s, right? Those cars are being purchased by the bank of mum and dad, right? It's not being purchased. How many 25-year-olds do you know who are going to spend 50 grand on a car?
Exactly.
Doesn't happen. Well, unless you're some YouTube sensation or, influencer or somebody else. But for the rest of the world, it just doesn't happen. So why are we wasting that? Because the advertising industry is preoccupied with youth, right? Most art directors, account executives and ad agencies are under the age of 40, right? Over 40s get put out to pasture. So because they don't have any direct form of reference, they go with what they think is the target audience. And business owners, in-house marketing departments do the same thing. We don't spend any money on customer research because we think we know the customer better than they know themselves. But the instant you become a seller instead of a customer, you are not your target market. And you cannot say that you know your customers better than they do, because you do not. And there's there are reams of empirical evidence that back all of this sort of stuff up. Okay, so what we end up but that's on one side. On the other side, the marketing that we're producing is devoid of this emotional reaction. It's very pragmatic and logical, often technology driven. And because it doesn't resonate, we're blaming the tools instead of the actual real issue, which is the creative execution. We're looking to create greater efficiencies in the process rather than effectiveness of the process. Okay, what we're aiming for is marketing effectiveness, not marketing efficiency. Marketing efficiency and effectiveness are conflated, but they're pretty much polar opposites. Okay, marketing effectiveness is about how well you do something, right? You set yourself a bar, a target, and you hopefully reach that target. Maybe you exceed that target, right? It's about doing the best possible work you can for a particular campaign or campaigns, okay? Efficiency, on the other hand, is a ratio. Efficiency is about input versus output. Is about how much input you make to deliver on a particular output. So if you set a particular target output, an efficient system, in inverted commas, is about reducing the input to the point where you're still maintaining the same output, which is a very different proposition. I'm sure you agree. So what we've got today is a situation where 90% of the marketing that we see today lacks any depth, any nuance. It's less self-aware, it's less self-referential. It calls upon fewer cultural references, okay? And instead of seeking to deliver an emotional reaction, it's coming from a position of literalism, right? But as a result, 86% of marketing output is not remembered. We're producing more and more generic, intrusive, annoying messaging. We've got all of these tricks that marketing are using, like tracking scripts and remarketing tags and third-party cookies and stuff, which is the reason why we have things like GDPR and CCPA and PIPL and a bunch of other four-letter acronyms. And it's the result of why 2 billion plus people install an ad blocker in their browser. Right. So we need to get back to the point where we're creating contextually valid messaging that resonates at both a logical, rational level as well as an emotional level. It's not one or the other, it's both. We need to do both, and we're not doing both. And that's the reason why, even though we're spending more and more, our results are going down. I if I'm hearing you correctly, and I have clients, I've even fallen into this, I think, trap. Does it even matter, whether you have 1,000 followers on LinkedIn or 1 million, if none of them are buying anything or interacting with you? Does it matter? If a tree falls in the forest. So unless you can draw a straight line between these vanity metrics and sales and revenue and profit, then it's just ego metrics, isn't it? It doesn't matter. Yes. Absolutely doesn't matter. And I will share, I think you'll enjoy this from a psychological standpoint. I have a niece and nephew, I want to say 6 and 5, it might be 5 and 7 years old. And they were just home recently. And one of the things they visited with all their family and stuff, and family, uses Facebook and does all these, family things. And these 2 young children, my wife was looking on Facebook and they were there with her, and they saw their picture and looked at it and got excited and said, "Look, there's 22 people that like me." And it hit me at that moment and they truly meant that they like me, they didn't understand that it was a button you click in their mind. And sure. So I think that, I'm thinking about that generation growing up and becoming marketers and CEOs and owners and leaders. And that really means absolutely nothing with running a business or anything like that. What do you think the impact of the next generation is going to be around this? Is it going to be a struggle, or do you think there's going to be a breakthrough moment where they're going to realize that, even having a conversation one-on-one has a lot of benefits from a marketing standpoint, opposed to doing all social media, in my mind? What are your thoughts? We're seeing it now, and there are plenty of more educated people than I who can actually wax lyrical about this particular subject. But there are a number of social media platforms which are directly responsible with the breakdown at a socio-cultural level with boys, girls, and young people today. Right? They haven't boys, girls, and young people. To be honest. Boys and men are having a harder time than women and girls in terms of, if you look at the number of admissions to Ivy School universities, it's heavily weighted towards women. While they're underrepresented at the salary level within companies, they're the fastest risers. The majority of house buyers are female. The issue is endemic. But even if you exclude the gender divide, let's say, if you just look at it from a interactional, from a social perspective, many, and I know we have to make, huge generalizations to make any sense of all of this. And I'm not saying this is the case for everyone, far from it, right? But I'm seeing it firsthand that people have forgotten how to speak to people. They don't know how to do it. They don't know how to have a face-to-face. And when they do, they're so nervous, right, that they're tongue-tied and they don't actually come off as well as they would. So many times we're working with teams, in-house marketing teams, sales teams with clients, and we'll be called in to act as kind of like a fractional marketing department, or putting in together sales training, some basic stuff, and we'll be going through a list of marketing qualified leads or even sales qualified leads with these teams, and we're saying, okay, so where are we with this particular account? Okay, well, I reached out and they never come back. Okay, how did you reach out? Well, I sent them a mail. Okay, when was that? 4 days ago. And so what are you waiting for? Well, I'm waiting for them to mail me back. I said, do you have their phone number? Yeah. So why haven't you picked the phone up in the last 4 days? And they look at me like I've just dropped from Mars. What? Pick up the telephone, call somebody and speak to them in real time? Are you mad? Right? All of this is going to come around and bite us on the tushy in a few years' time when these people become have responsibility at a further up the corporate hierarchical ladder. Obviously we're not talking C-suite, but certainly senior management level, because what happens is we lead by example, don't we? Right? So we're training, consciously or unconsciously, the next generation of people who are coming to take our positions down the road. And if we don't have these basic human traits, communication traits, social traits in place, then the whole thing is going to get more indistinct, more impersonal, in a world where customers are looking for personalization, individualization, and showing how brands think they matter to them. Now, there's only so much we can do with technology, because at the end of the day, once the insipid, saccharine attempt at personalization through AI, we see through it, we'll be seeking out those real life, genuine conversations and relationships. It's just like back in the day when you used to get a personalized circular, right? Hi, Amos, how are you? And you used to think, oh, wow, they know my name. Isn't that cool, right? Now, assuming they get your name right, or it doesn't come over as dear first name in uppercase, right? We know that technology is there. We know that it's virtually free. We know it's insincere. We know that we're just one of 100 gazillion other names that they've sent that communication out to. So there is no personalization in there. We're still today, like the basic premise that people buy from people is as valid today as it's always been.
Makes sense. I'm sorry, but I got to tell you a funny story that oftentimes as a consultant, maybe I'm helping a marketing department or a sales team, and I might come up with a form letter or something to get them started. But many times, so that it doesn't appear as you just described, I will put, dear first name, like I'm typing this out. This isn't a digital document, and then right, sending it to them in a Word document. And then down below, I'll put, include something in the first paragraph personal, then the bullet points, and then conclude with, an invitation or what have you. And I never dreamed in my life that I had to explain how to use this document. And so I get a phone call from one of my client's customers, and they said, "You're never going to believe what I received today." And I said, "What's that?" And they sent me a copy. One of the sales guys, a younger guy, just took it and emailed it exactly as it was, didn't personalize it or anything. And so he sent it to his 50 customers, and they all got this form letter, which I thought was, in my mind, there's what would even make you think that made sense? But you mentioned AI, and, there's all kinds of videos out there. There's things saying, let AI take over your Facebook and you'll make millions. Let AI do this. Now, thus far, I utilize AI, but I utilize it as a tool. So, for instance, in my marketing, or actually, in your words, my promotion. So I am also an auctioneer in the state of Pennsylvania, and I have estate auctions. So I will upload the list of the things that I'm going to sell to AI. I will create a post, and then I will say, give me an idea of some photographs that I could include with my post that I created. Or, I may say, help me pick out the high-end items according to what's selling across the country today. And then I'll advertise those particular items a little bit heavier, like those types of things. But do you think that AI will ever get to the point, I don't believe it's there yet, some may, that it will take care of all of these things for us? Should we be letting AI completely run our Facebook page, for instance?
Depends what you're trying to do with Facebook, right? I think you have to take a sort of step back. The issue is AI is already 100% running a number of systems within organizations today. But when it's running are things which are easily documented, easily repeatable processes. And that's why AI scores, right? If you're looking for it to sort out a huge bunch of data and come up with trends, insights, variability, even down to black swan data events, it's fantastic for that sort of stuff. Okay, but for some reason, we, as an industry, we seem to be trying to make AI do stuff that AI sucks at doing and calling that a win, when we could be or should be using AI for stuff that it's really good at, far better than human beings can be, or far better at doing things that human beings just don't want to do, like database cleaning and just basic admin crap that nobody wants to do, that interns used to do for the first 6 weeks of joining the company. Okay. When Gen AI first became noticed by what I call normal people, right? Civilians, if you like, right? Non-AI geeks, right? AI geeks have been watching AI grow for like 20 years or more. This is not new, okay? ChatGPT didn't come out 2.5 years ago, okay? GPT has been around for a hell of a lot longer. All they did 3 Decembers ago was to put a prompt interface on it. That was the revolution, okay? But the thinking behind that, the LLM model, had been developed for years, okay? But what I'm saying is that the AI geeks, even the ones in marketing, have been using AI to do things that humans can't do as well, okay? You mentioned Facebook. Facebook ads, there are a number of what we can call AI-driven tools, which are slicing and dicing audience. Facebook calls them target audience profiles, but looking at demographic and behavior of the recipients of our advertising and promoting it in a programmatic way, in a pseudo-intelligent way. Okay. When we try to get AI to do stuff that AI is not really good at, what we do is we see really bad ads, really cheesy images and video. We've all seen this stuff on LinkedIn. Oh, look at this, isn't it wonderful? And it's like, okay, how is that going to make me one dime? Okay, as a documentary of the state of the art of technology, great, but how does that help me sell more shit? It doesn't. Okay. So we've got really cheesy images and video and really horrible copy and all the rest, okay? The thing is, humans were already good at doing those things, but we all thought AI could do it cheaper, which we interpreted as being doing it better, okay? We're looking at AI to do stuff faster and cheaper instead of looking at AI to do things better than we could otherwise do. Okay, and I think we're just at the cusp of realization that actually AI is pretty crap at doing original things. Okay, yes, it's great because you don't need to start with a blank page anymore, which is always a really hard thing, right? You can get some ideation going. Okay, there's something you can have which can engage in what looks like a conversation, but you need to take into account that that conversation is taking place based upon previous existing ideas. There is nothing original going on. So the chance that you will find something fresh and original using AI prompts is extremely small. Okay? So it will fuel the creation of more mediocre work, because if you're using AI to create, you're just combining ideas from what's already out there. Right? Until AI has some kind of an emotional intelligence, if it ever does, okay, it's incapable of creating something on its own. It's a curator.
Yep.
Okay. Now, all of that boring, non-creative, repetitive stuff should definitely be thrown at AI. Absolutely. So most of the performance marketing stuff, programmatic style ads, banner ads, A/B testing, rationality-based copywriting, like features, colors, availability, those sorts of things. The basic grunt work, right? The test and learn stuff. Give that all to AI because it can do it, and it can do it better. Where AI gets interesting is where it can do things that human either can't do quickly or can't do at all because the data sets are so absolutely enormous, right? So things like gathering data and working with like what if models around those data sets, okay? How AI can link all those moving parts together and help us with strategic planning, the ability to gather category entry points or create more detailed marketing segmentation or identify the optimum position, build funnels and work on the best leverage points, recommend new product development ideas, Then imagine taking all of those things together that have been created in, quasi real time and have them all speak to each other, the so-called agentic AI, to identify the optimal strategy for our business in the next 6, 12, 24 months, right? We could run a gazillion scenarios where, we or even the AI could change variables like objectives and pricing and distribution and ad spend and media choice and whatever, okay? And we could model all of these possibilities and work out which was the best one and review that every day if you wanted to, right? So AI can connect the dots, spot the trends, augment what marketing teams are already doing, right? Create private GPTs based upon your own particular business, your own market, all of the customer-facing messages that your business has to create, your financials, your reporting, research, whatever, okay? It's like a second brain to help you anticipate trends, okay? So I think at least in marketing, I think we'll see some kind of AI-driven system that will handle research and create data and develop possible strategy models and move that into the short-term performance communication stuff, right? Like the rational, like I said, the sales activation stuff, buy one, get one free delivery, only available in blue, this sort of stuff. And I think we're seeing the beginnings of that now. Certainly within the next couple of years, that'll be there, okay? But whatever it is, the way that we interact with it won't be I don't think it'll be a chat type model. I don't see putting in prompts as being
long term,
the way that'll work forward. I think the agentic model, where we're looking at outcomes, this is what we want to happen, and let it go around to tweak those models and those possibilities to see what it can construct to actually get to that result, is probably how that'll work.
I like what you just said. we should look at it as another brain to help us get things done. Since AI, as you said, the past couple of years has continually been gaining traction. Again, I use it for a lot of things, but thus far, I'm letting Thomas Jefferson tell me how to use it. And somebody asked Thomas Jefferson once, why don't you have a speechwriter? And he's one of very few politicians, even back to that time period, that always wrote his own speeches. And his answer was, why would I let any other man, and I'm saying, or other thing, write what I am going to say? It needs to come from me. And I think for me, I'll use it to help, to, like you said, not start with a blank page. What I love to do with it, one of the things that I've just recently started, I take all of my emails for the entire week every Friday, and I upload them, and I say, hey, tell me anything I said I was going to do, anything somebody asked me to do. You know, I give it some parameters, and it gives me back bullet points that I can check against to make sure I didn't miss anything. Like, those are the kinds of things that I think it can be hugely helpful for. But I'm still kind of back to, like I said, what Thomas Jefferson said. If I'm going to say it or say that it's my message, I want it to come from me. I'll let ChatGPT help me, get my grammar right, or whatever the case may be. But I want the message to be my message.
There was a fantastic quote from somebody, I can't remember who it was, on social media, about the best ever critique I've read about using AI to write marketing content. And the quote was, no one has satisfactorily answered the fundamental question of why I should bother to read something that you couldn't be bothered to write.
I like it. It's true.
It's fantastic. Absolutely fantastic.
So, from a marketing standpoint, and then, kind of digging into that psychology side, what is the biggest thing that businesses, companies are missing, marketing departments are missing about making that psychological connection? What's their biggest fear? Why are they not doing it? Because there's a lot of companies out there that either aren't doing any marketing because they're scared of all of it. When I say none, they're doing nothing substantial, or they're missing the idea that you're coming to here, is that there's a psychological impact that needs to happen there. What do you think is the biggest barrier?
I think there will be a tipping point at which companies will be forced to adopt, let's call it, behavioral science type thinking into their marketing, because the promotion which they're calling marketing is affecting so little amounts in terms of revenue that they have nowhere else to go. So we have to look further upstream, and that comes with the people who pays all our salaries, which is the customer.
Yep.
Okay. I read something on Harvard Business Review, I think it was earlier this year. 70% of marketers hadn't spoken to a customer in the past 6 weeks.
That's insane.
Which I find scandalous. I mean, what the hell are you doing all day? Okay. Marketing's role is to bring the voice of the customer to the boardroom, to the heart of the company. And if you're not doing that on a regular basis and don't have those feedback loops in place, then you don't deserve to be called a marketer. You just want to get involved with making videos and building trade booths and making branded stress balls and tote bags and just crap. I mean, really, good grief. So it all starts with that, and it then starts looking at the basics of marketing. Okay, so we start with diagnosis, then we do qualitative research, then we do quantitative research, then we do ICP definition, we do segmentation, then we do targeting, we do positioning. All of this stuff which is the 9/10 of the iceberg that most people don't see. But why would they see it? Because they're not in marketing. There's no need for them to see, right? But the problem is there are people who think they're marketers, and they think that all they need to do is to be a marketer, is to get themselves a MacBook Pro and a subscription to Creative Cloud, and then sit in a Starbucks drinking a flat white all day, and they can call themselves a marketer, right? So unless you can understand the reasons, the contextual reasons why people buy stuff, right? And what motivates a buyer, how to create those memory structures in the brain so that when out-of-market buyers become in-market buyers, they think of us as well as they're thinking of, the category leader and the immediate competition, which is all marketing can ever do, okay? All we can do is come to mind when a buyer is in a buying phase, right? We don't get them to buy. We don't generate demand. That's all BS, okay? All we can do is ping into their mind to create that. It's like SEO for your brain, okay? I'm walking down the Drix aisle in my supermarket and I'm looking for a cola flavored drink, and I see Coca-Cola, and it reminds me of the Coca-Cola ads that I've seen, maybe the holidays are coming ad or whatever particular Coke ad that you've seen, which are all brand awareness ads. You'll notice there's never you never see a Coke ad saying, 12 pack of Coke for the price of 10 or something. You never see any of that nonsense, right? It's always brand awareness stuff. So I see the red can, the distinctive brand assets, the logos, the imagery, and I have in the split second of time to decide whether I'm going to go with Coke or Pepsi or something else. That's all we can do as marketers, to create those mental structures. And we do that by evoking emotions as well as creating the narrative that the buyer tells themselves to justify their purchase. Whatever we're buying, right? Whether it's B2B or B2C, regardless of the pricing, almost as well. We buy, sorry, let me just get rid of that phone. Oh, it's a robocall anyway. Anyway, I'm getting an AI call. I mean, they must have heard me. I think they're coming to get me now. Whatever we're buying, whomever we're buying it from, we are buying emotionally. We're buying from the heart, and then post-rationalizing logically. We tell ourselves a story as to give us a plausible excuse as to why we need the thing that we're buying. And if we buy into that narrative, we keep whatever we're buying. And if we don't, we return it.
Yep.
So unless we have both sides of the coin, unless we have the emotional together with the rational, the prospect of effective marketing becomes ever more distant.
Makes sense. So as we're coming to a close, the two things that I want to make sure that we get to. One, which is a pretty simple one. Where can our listeners find out more about you, your company? Where can they find information to get engaged with you guys if they are interested to do so?
The agency is Kexino, Kexino. Kexino.com is where we are. If you want to get hold of me, probably the easiest way to get hold of me is on LinkedIn. Would you believe, Amos, there is only one Gee Ranasinha on LinkedIn?
Wow.
Can you imagine? Isn't that amazing?
That is.
Right. So you can find me on LinkedIn. I post twice a week. I post short 1 minute, 90-second videos about various things which are either annoying me or about marketing that particular day, or informing, educating, hopefully entertaining people. And you can sort of dip in and dip out and find out what's on my mind at any point in time there. LinkedIn is probably the best way to get hold of me. Otherwise, obviously, the website, as I said.
Awesome. And we'll make sure to add those in the show notes as well for our listeners. So
Thank you.
my favorite part of the whole interview is this last little bit. We do 3 rapid fire questions. We ask every guest the same 3 questions. And I said someday, I'm going to publish all of these and become a millionaire with all of this great information. But the first question comes out of many years of discussions in boardrooms with business owners, clients. Often I hear things like, the young generation doesn't do this. The young generation is maybe lazy. The young generation didn't learn this in school. Or when I was in school, I learned this, those types of things. So the first question is quite simply, if you could get all the school administrators from across the world sitting in front of you, what would be your one piece of advice to them of something that they could include in their curriculum or within that student's career at school that would help turn out a better, well-rounded person, a leader into the future?
I have a stock answer for this one, Amos. And it's actually very basic. What I would say to anybody, no matter how many years they've spent in formal or tertiary education, and they're going out and finding their way in the world and looking to navigate through either, corporate, a corporate position, or they're looking to do something entrepreneurial. It doesn't matter. It's very simple. Do what you say you were going to do when you said you were going to do it. Right? If you said to the client that you're going to get back to them Friday at 10:30 in the morning, then you move heaven and earth to get to the client at 10:30 on Friday morning. Not 10 o'clock, not 11 o'clock, and not 6 p.m. on a Monday evening. Friday at 10:30 is what you said. Friday at 10:30 is what you do, right? If they're expecting something from you, you make sure you do whatever it takes to deliver on time, if not earlier. And you factor in what I call the FU factor so that allows you to make that promise.
I like it.
Because if you just do that, I'm a firm believer in this, okay? Maybe I'm a bit of a misanthrope here, but if you just do that, you are automatically better than 80% of the people that your customer is dealing with. Just by doing that, just by having integrity, just by doing what the hell you said you were going to do when you said you were going to do it.
I love that. And I just recently had an experience where one evening I had to work late, and the question came up as to why are you working late? You run your own business. You work for yourself. Why would you ever work 12 hours or whatever the case may be? And my answer was, yes, I run my own business. I have freedoms that come along with that and responsibilities. But I told my client that I would have this done by 7 a.m. tomorrow. And I chose to do 3 other projects this afternoon, which means I have to work on this right now. And the person actually said, well, then maybe you shouldn't promise things. And I kind of thought in my mind, well, what kind of business doesn't promise anything? So I love that deliver on time. The second question is, throughout your career, what has been your go-to book that you have continually been able to go back to over the years and get good insights from?
Ooh, a go-to book. That's a good one. There are so many. From a marketing perspective, which is obviously my bread and butter more than anything else, there are far too many. I mean, How Brands Grow by Byron Sharp is probably essential reading for anyone in marketing, that's for sure. There's a couple of books by Robert Cialdini. Influence is one, and Persuasion is another one. if you're into behavioral science and understanding biobehavior and learning about the levers, the cognitive biases, the heuristics that work in the brain, and how to exploit those chemical reactions in the brain for commerce reasons, then I suppose the Bible of behavioral science is a book called Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman, Nobel laureate, sadly passed away a couple of years ago. There's another book called Nudge by Richard Thaler, who it's another must read if you're into behavioral science. Or his second book, Misbehaving, is also fantastic. But Nudge, he won a Nobel Prize for that book as well. Outside of that, there are other books which I could probably recommend, but I think there's a book by what's the guy's name? See, you've caught me off guard now. There's a book by, what was his name? I'm looking it up now, so you'll have to pause this bit. And Tim Sanders, that's his name. Yeah, you're going to have to do an edit here. I'm sorry.
Oh, you're fine.
That's it. So the book, I read this book because I was invited to an event and I saw the author speak. The author's a guy by the name of Tim Sanders, who at the time was working for Yahoo. And he wrote this book called Love is the Killer App. It's about 25 years old now. And it's about a way of doing business, about a way of interacting with peers, with clients, with suppliers. And it was a real eye-opener for me because I was basically following the tenets of this book without even knowing it. And it's very similar to, the answer I gave for your first question. There's a lot of integrity about that. There's a lot of empathy in there. And it's about doing what the right thing to do that is right in your head, in your heart, even if you are tempted to do the polar opposite. So Love is the Killer App by Tim Sanders.
Awesome. And the last question is, in today's ever-changing world of technology, what is actually your favorite piece of technology that you find useful and use every day?
Favorite piece of technology that I use every day. I would probably, that's a very good one. I would probably say my piano.
Okay.
I'm a frustrated pianist. I use that as an outlet to vent my frustrations and get my brain into another era when I need to,
Yes.
I suppose you could call it sort of like a type of meditation. I try to play jazz and blues from the early 30s up until the early to mid 40s, that sort of era. And I'm constantly frustrated in my lack of ability, but it doesn't stop me trying.
Awesome. Well, Gee, thank you so much for joining us today. It has been a pleasure. I hope maybe we can get you back on another day, and I think we could talk for another hour or two probably, and working our way through those things. But thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. And for our listeners, please, if you've enjoyed this episode, don't forget to check out our past episodes. And on whatever platform you're listening to us on, don't forget to follow us so you can get updates every time a new episode comes out. Until next time, we appreciate all of you.